Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Raw Show with Michael McDonald and I have a very special guest. We have Jackie Schwabe joining me today. Jackie, thanks for being a guest on the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Michael. I appreciate it.
Jackie describes herself as the reluctant ringmaster, which is definitely something we're going to dive into. She's the reluctant ringmaster of Jackie Schwabe's circus. So just before we get into the first question, would you be able to share a little bit about where that came about and why you call yourself the reluctant ringmaster?
Well, absolutely, Michael. Thank you. In 2013, I thought my life was kind of going on exactly the way I planned it. I'm very meticulous, is the nice word, and had a plan for my life, right? So I was pregnant with my fourth child, and we were going to an appointment to try to figure out why my third daughter wasn't quite like her older siblings. And we walked into the room, and she, for the very first time, she was 2 years old, she said a word. She said the word bird. So I was very excited. So I thought, oh, she must be fine. She said a word. She's not deaf. She's not autistic. She's none of these things. Well, it turns out, as the not most feeling person ever gave us the diagnosis at the end of the meeting, as I was sitting there like 3 weeks from delivering my next child, and she said, well, she's at least moderately autistic, and she'll probably not do much of anything. So you'll need to get into 40 hours a week of intensive therapy immediately. She talked for a long, long time after that about all of the things that were going to change my life, but I still don't think I even remember all of them to this day. And so I took my waddling Betty out and put my 2-year-old on top of it because she refused to walk, which is one of the other fun things. And I dropped her at home with the daycare person, and I went to my office and I cried because I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do here?
Yeah.
And at the time, I was the director of innovation at a cardiac MRI software visualization company. I had a really busy career with a lot of responsibilities. I had 3 children already, and school's about to start. So the kids are going to a new school. My daughter's going into full-time therapy. Our daycare lady felt we lied to her and had a special needs kid, and we didn't let her know, but she started in June. So we didn't know, right? We just found out today. It was in
Yeah.
August. Then my mom, I got a call like 2 in the morning. My mom probably wasn't going to make it through the night. She was very ill, and they weren't really sure what happened. Uh, both my dogs died. My dad and my stepdad had heart attacks. And after I returned from maternity leave, the exact very first day, I was told my position was eliminated.
Ugh.
And it was a bit much.
Yeah. Yeah. Just hearing that wasn't very good. So what was it like for you?
So as I think I mentioned, I'm kind of meticulous.
Mhm.
Probably would have been declared a bit of a control freak until that point in my life, and literally everything that I had ever had control of seemed to have fallen apart. And I was just really overwhelmed. So I did what I normally do under stress, which is I researched answers.
Yeah.
So I either research or I read or I take a class. But there weren't classes on how to deal with an autistic child right before you deliver a baby and your dogs die and your mom's almost going to die and your dads have heart attacks scenario. So I kind of had to sort of search around for how does a mom deal with an autism diagnosis. But what I kept finding was how to deal with the medical stuff. And what I didn't find was how to deal with me. Like, what do I do now? How do I manage all of this stuff when I was already probably managing more than was seemingly humanly possible? And I didn't find anything. I didn't find the answers. I didn't know what to call myself. I wasn't just a parent anymore. And I didn't feel like a caregiver because, I was caring for my mom remotely, and my daughter Zoe was my daughter. Like, it's not caregiving, it's parenting. But it was caregiving, and it was more. And so I couldn't find a solution. And so reluctantly, I would say, which is how I became the reluctant ringmaster, I decided to build one because that's what I do. I'm technical, 20 years of healthcare IT background. And so then I started that new adventure in life because that wasn't adding on any stress at all, at all. And started building a startup that got funded to provide a software solution to at least help with some of the overwhelm. And that's how I began to be the Reluctant Ringmaster, where we do a podcast, myself and others that join, similar to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And every week we try to bring tips to caregivers that are about them. Like, how do you take care of you in the midst of drowning in everyone else's needs? And that's how I became me, or who I am today.
Right. So what was the first step then? So you tried to research the different ways that you could help yourself as well, and help your child and everything else, and you didn't find the answers. So what led you to not just keep looking, but to then create it yourself? What was that initial moment?
It was actually about 3 months of research, which is a long time to research. And it was timed kind of with how long I was on maternity leave. So I had time kind of to figure that out. And
Okay.
so in the meantime, I had that time to kind of look and research, and I couldn't find what I needed to find. And then I think sometimes the world just answers your prayers, or it answers your questions for you when you can't find them yourself. Because then I went back to work and was told I didn't have a job. So now I had an immediate problem, which was to eat. So and feed my now 4 children, and one who had a very expensive therapy regime. And I am married. My husband and I have been together about 20 years, but ABA therapy in the States is like $50,000 a year. And I just lost a very high level software engineering position. And so we had no money. So I thought, well, I can make a solution while getting funding and get paid, and hope that those things kind of come together. So I think it was a bunch of other life circumstances that sort of pushed me over the edge, whether I was ready to be there or not.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that sort of makes sense, because it's, we all have our own moments, we all have our own limits, we all have our own kind of situations where we say, you know what, it's just not working, it's not happening. I need to go and find out what to do and how to do it and everything else. And it seems to me, at least, that you're the kind of person that won't stop until you actually have an answer. Like you would keep going and everything else. You seem to, at least from my impression, is to be someone that's quite determined.
I might be a bit tenacious, yes. I don't tend to be someone who gives up. And there really just didn't seem to be answers out there, at least not the ones directed at parents. And so I had a bunch of immediate needs, and also you had to have an adult home with your child who was in. We went the ABA therapy route, and it was 40 hours a week of in-home ABA therapy. So it had to be supervised by an adult. So not only did I have to find a position, I had to try to find a position that was paying me something similar, that would allow me to work from home, that would, let me to stop every hour to 2 hours and let a therapist in and let a therapist out. And it was, there's a lot of new limitations that I had to figure out a way to overcome in getting a new job, and asking for all of those kind of extra perks is really not, it's not really a great way to kind of get in there and do stuff. No. So I did find actually a regular job for a while. I was working for Xerox, and they were amazing. I worked for the healthcare solutions company, but they hired me in as a consultant. So I had it was 50 to 75% travel. So I was either home directly supervising my daughter as I was supposed to, or completely gone. And you think remote caregiving for your mom is hard, and day-to-day caregiving for your daughter is hard. I tried doing all of that in an airplane, or, in Florida when I live in Wisconsin. And it was, so that was about 2 years of crazy town for sure. Yeah. And then they folded that group. And so I got another job being a product manager for software, and they let me work from home like 4 days a week, and that actually worked pretty well. But then they did some right sizing, and I think like the universe was like, look, dude, you just are going to have to start your own company. Like we're going to put every single obstacle in your path possible until you like wake up and realize that you have something that you're supposed to do. And so I listened, and March of, was it last year, was my March 10th of last year was the last day of full-time employment outside of the home. That wasn't part of my new company. And I would say that was probably the first day of the rest of my life. And the day I became the reluctant ringmaster, because I have to do it all now, right? There's no safety nets when you're on the trapeze of life. There are no safety nets, and that's kind of how we're rolling now.
Yeah. What was the initial conversation like? So when you were in these interviews with people and you wanted the job, right? But then you also had certain, I mean, from their perspective, there'd be almost like conditions for hiring you. You know, to, for
Yeah.
want of a better expression, like it's like, okay, you want to hire me, but I need these things in order to be able to look after my family and everything else. So, what was that conversation like?
It was actually very difficult, and I think the reason it was difficult is I have an uncanny sense of ethics. Like I don't lie to people. I won't
Mm,
lie to people. I won't leave out parts to lie to people, or any of those things, because I don't have energy to remember all the lies that are told.
yeah,
And I also, I've spent 20 years being a software person, so I wasn't always the most tactful. I was pretty kind of direct in my approach. And so these nice, wonderful HR people would ask me loaded questions, and it probably felt a bit like I was giving them back loaded answers, because I would say, well, I have a special needs child and I have 3 kids, and I just kind of give it
yeah.
to them with both barrels. And so it took 3 months to find a job.
I mean, I can't imagine that would have helped your chances a little bit. Just go,
Yeah.
so you need this extra time and at home, and you need to do all these things. Why is that? And you just sort of like drop this weight on them and go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, great, yeah, thanks. We'll let you know if you get the job.
Yeah.
It
They're like,
doesn't seem to lend itself over to having an easy time finding a job that's that flexible.
no, it was like, here are all the things. And they're like, oh, those are a lot of things. Um, Now I think what ended up working out so well with the Xerox situation was, I have 20 years in healthcare integration, so I have very unique niche specialty. And we're nerds. We don't need to be anywhere to be nerds. Like, that's the great benefit of being a nerd. We get to be in our little hobbit holes in the basement under where they don't want other people to go anyway, because they might talk to us. So it worked out in my benefit that I had a real strong technical background, and that afforded itself to being able to work from home. And I do think that the people that hired me at Xerox were just amazing older gentlemen who had 30, 40 years in the industry, and they just got it. They were family-fearing men, or family men, and they were God-fearing folks. Not that others aren't, but they just were like, yeah, you got to do your thing, do your family thing. You work hard, we'll make sure that we can accommodate as best as we can, as long as the clients are open to that. And then luckily I fell upon an amazing client who was a mom whose son had some special circumstances, and so she was very accommodating. So I was certainly blessed to almost feel like I was slowly ushered in by the world in the universe, instead of sort of literally being thrown off the roof. I was given some
Yeah.
time to sort of figure it out.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
but I was very, very lucky, very fortunate that they were there and were willing to take a chance on me and my
Is,
dreams.
is there a moment when you sort of said, well, sometimes it is about the actual communication of what you want. Like when you have these conversations, I mean, you seem to have found someone that was quite accommodating, that was quite willing to do certain things to make your life easier. How important would you say it was to try to come to some sort of level ground and try and even communicate that in the right way?
Yeah, I think it's a loaded question. It was very important, Michael. But I think what was a big deal for me, and that probably the awakening moment where I truly feel like I'm a different human now than, even 5 years ago, 3 years ago. Um, I had one of the people that I worked for at Xerox, was, like I said, a kind of a wiser old souls, right? They're a little wiser gentleman. And he was really, really smart and very sweet. And he had learned to talk to other humans besides technical people. And he said to me, he's like, Jackie, you're burning the candle at both ends. You can't live this life this way forever. You're not feeling well. You've told me, he hadn't even seen me. He'd never seen me before. It was all remote phone calls. He said, you told me you were overweight. You told me you were struggling with, balance between your family's needs and your needs. You sound so stressed. You're not sleeping well, or you're sleeping all the time, and everything's kind of out of whack. At some point, you got to worry about you. And I was like, I don't have time to worry about me. I don't have time to worry about my kid and my other kid and then my other kid. And at the same time, my other son was diagnosed with, was dyslexic. So he had a very rare form of sound dyslexia.
Yeah.
My older daughter developed some, which I'm sure from all the crazy house stress, right? She developed a very extreme phobia of bugs, and that was not a good thing.
No.
And so you have all of this stuff happening, and I'm like, oh my goodness, oh my gosh, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
And so his advice is the advice I give everyone else. And it's the kind of the beginning of my journey in self-care. But he said, hang up the phone and go take a bath. And I was like, what? He's like, hang up the phone and go take a bath. And he's like, oh, and by the way, lock the door and don't let the kids in. And I was like, why would I do that, Randy? He said, well, because you're the only one in there, and sometimes you have to put on your own oxygen mask. And I was like, what? And he gave me, you hear this everywhere. Everyone uses this analogy, but when you're ready to hear it, or even when you're not ready to hear it, but you need to, it does have more of that meaning, more of that metaphorical meaning. He said, if you're in a plane and the oxygen masks come down, they always tell the moms to put theirs on first, or they might not have the strength, right, to save themselves. And what are you going to do if your 3-year-old child makes it, but you're dead? Right? And there will be no one there to take care of them later. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, Randy. He's like, no, I mean it. He's like, don't make it a condition of your employment. I was like, okay. So I did, and I thought about it, and it took a little bit longer, but at that point I was 245 pounds. I'm about 5'6", so that's not small. So it's a little on the heavy side, and I'm traveling a lot, and I'm eating cruddy food, and I'm super stressed out. I'm trying to set a good role model for my children. I'm trying to learn all this ABA stuff. My poor husband's like, she's crazy. I'm just going to leave her alone for a while. And so I just started walking, and I started meditating with just a little app on my phone, because I didn't even know what meditation was, but I figured it was quieter than my life. And started trying to take care of myself a little bit. And it was really, really hard, because I actually kind of realized I'd never had ever taken care of me. And it felt really selfish, like really, really, really selfish. I don't know how many years this was, 2013. So that was like 2017, it was 4 years later. So
Yeah.
I'm about 180 pounds now. So I've lost 65 pounds every day. I know it is a lot. It's like a whole child.
It is. that's, that's definitely one way of putting it. Yeah.
I was like well, I didn't need any more children. So that's one way to get rid of the extra baggage. But just trying to at least once a day, and it's still a big struggle for me, but to realize that I'm a forever caregiver, it's a little bit different than caring for a parent who is going to pass. I have to figure out a way to care for a child even after I'm gone. And so to me, that means if I can't be selfless and if I can't think of myself for myself, I have to be around as long as I possibly can and stay as healthy as I possibly can so I can be there for her as long as I possibly am able. And that really changed my view on pretty much everything. And it became important to drink water and to walk and to take time to de-stress and to realize that every person's important. And so I think I'm still on the journey, but it's definitely going in the right direction.
You mentioned walking and meditation, and from everything that you've said, I mean, you are juggling quite a lot of things at the same time. This sounds like you're someone that might have like 10 balls that they need to juggle, but you are quite good at juggling. So you clearly you're able to do that. So what sort of strategies do you have that can help you fit all of these things in? Because I imagine there's an element of it that you might need to react as well. Like a lot of it might be a little bit unknown, as in something might just happen that you've then got to react to and you've got to take care of, but that might have a knock-on effect on other things that you then have to do, I would imagine. I mean, just
Yeah.
from all the guests that I've listened to and from my own experience, we only have a certain amount of time in the day. And if something that you probably shouldn't do or that you didn't think that you had to do or that wasn't on your agenda for the day, all of a sudden that takes up an hour, you're then an hour less in the day to a certain extent. So what
Absolutely.
strategies do you have to balance the element of potentially reacting but then still able to take care of your family and, as you mentioned, take care of yourself as well?
Yeah, so that is a fantastic question. And you're right, actually. So I was when I was talking about my boss, he's like, "You're burning the candle from both ends," and he was right because, like, quite literally, I would be getting up at 5 in the morning and going to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning, and doing that 6 days a week. And so not only did I didn't have time to take care of myself. There were literally no more hours in my day at all. And at the same time, and how, of course this would happen, it makes complete sense. I was diagnosed with narcolepsy, which is kind of a fun little sleep disorder that makes life awesome. And so again, I would just kind of say the universe was like, all right, dude, seriously, slow down. So now we're going to slap you with a disease that makes you sleep because you just are being stupid. uh, so I had to figure out a way to I always say I've quite literally materialized time out of my butt. And how was I going to do that? And so I started doing little things like I needed to turn some things into routines that would allow me not to have to think of every single thing all of the time, because there was a huge amount of decision fatigue. Like everyone's coming to me with everything all of the time. Like the doctors are calling me to ask me if they should intubate my mom. And at the same time, the therapists are asking me if we should continue to let her scream since it's the fourth hour of her screaming at the top of her lungs. And then my son's like, can I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And I just go off the rails because I can't possibly handle the peanut butter and jelly sandwich conversation. And so I started doing what I have coined for myself, just because it helps me, habit chaining. So I would make one very, very, very small habit and I would continue to do that. And once I felt like it was so automatic that I wasn't thinking, I would chain on to that maybe one of my less desirable habits that I needed to put in. So it's kind of linked with something that was going to happen anyway. And it created a really solid like cue routine reward system, which is great because it's sort of habit hacking your subconscious versus, logically all of us are like, I want to be thin. I want to be fit. I'm going to go walk today. And then, lizard brain's like, let's go eat Cheetos. And you're like, all right, let's do that.
Yeah.
So I had to sort of hack that out a little bit. And what I found was as I started doing that, first of all, I started looking at the things I was doing and just and deciding, are those things of value? I mean, am I doing them because I need to, or am I doing them out of habit, good, bad, or indifferent? Or am I doing them because I'm stressed? Or, what do I need to be watching my email for 3 hours every morning? Or am I just doing that because I don't know what else to do? And so I started really examining the things on the to-do list and celebrating the ones that got done as my to-do list and creating these little habit chains. And the way I describe it in a chapter of a book I'd recently written in was, I went from juggling bowling balls to juggling birds. And what I mean by that is, when you're juggling bowling balls, you better freaking pay attention, because one of those suckers falls, it hurts. Like, it lands on your toe every time, right? It always lands on your foot. And when every time someone throws a new ball at you, when it's a bowling ball, it inevitably hits you in the stomach, right? So it's not a fun game, and it's not a way to live your life, and it's hard. And so as I developed more and more habit change, it was a little bit more like juggling birds, because sometimes when someone would throw a new bird at me, the others could fly a little bit on their own. And it quite literally materialized time out of my butt. So I was able to put in some really solid sleep routines to help manage my own chronic condition, able to find time to enjoy my children instead of feeling like I was always caregiving for them, start a new business, all of these things. And it really stemmed from one teeny tiny itty bitty little habit. And my first habit was drinking a glass of water every time I went into the bathroom. And that was it. And after I figured that out, I started just adding other little things. And today I'm not ready to jump off the roof most days, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of there's science backing the idea of habits now, and it's all based on neuroscience and all kinds now. But
Oh yeah.
there's a definite benefit that people can get when they sort of block habits that are alongside things that they do every day. This is why, like, morning
Yeah.
routines are so popular, because everyone wakes up.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
have a very, as you say, with the little thing, if you have a very, very small thing that you do every time you wake up, you're doing it every single day,
Yeah.
and it does make a big difference. So yeah, I like the idea that you use habit chaining as well, because you kind of link them together. And it's how did you actually feel when this started to benefit you? Because I would imagine, at least, that you had to keep doing these things before you then felt the benefit from them. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but what was the actual impact on, because you mentioned decision fatigue before, so
Mhm.
it might be interesting to maybe talk about that. But what did it actually do for you to put this in place?
So until very within the last couple of months, I actually hadn't really read a lot of books on personal development. So now I have all kinds of science to back up it. So I feel kind of smart. So it's like, oh, look at all the smart things it did. But it did take a while, actually. It wasn't like, okay, I drink water every morning and now all of a sudden I'm not gonna, freak out about the peanut butter jelly sandwich decision. But I would say probably a couple months, actually, because I felt like I had so many things I had to fix, and trying to batch process that, right? Fixing everything at once clearly wasn't working. It clearly was not working. And I knew that. So I had to sort of start small, and I have to actually give credit to my autistic daughter, because one of the things that we work with her on was, which is funny that you brought up, is like morning routine and afternoon routine and evening routines. And as long as we didn't deviate from her routine, life was much better, right? Life was much better. She knew what to expect. We knew what to expect. And that resulted in a lot less screaming and meltdowns and headbanging and stuff like that. So I think I was more observing her successes before I noticed mine. And so I thought, well, if this is working for her, I'm going to start with water, and then I'm going to add brushing my teeth, and I'm going to add this. And then eventually she and I were doing a lot of them together, right? So we get up together, we go drink some water, we brush our teeth, and then we do these little habits together. And and one morning I just woke up and I actually wanted to get out of bed. And that's literally never happened before. I love to sleep. I love to sleep. And I'm always tired. So I got up and I opened my eyes and I knew what I was supposed to do, even if all it was to drink some water. And just knowing what to do and not having to make the choice anymore, not having to decide if we should have grape or strawberry or whether or not, they should turn off the ventilator or all of those things. I just did it. And I think the first day that I woke up and just did it, I didn't think about it and go, okay, what's your first thing you do today? Okay, make sure you drink water. Oh, don't forget to get Zoe up. Don't forget that. When I just woke up and did it, I didn't realize, you don't realize it at that moment either. It's like halfway through the day and you're like, holy crap. I just like got up this morning and just did it. Like it's 12. How did 12 o'clock happen? Where did the morning go? And things just kept getting lighter. Like just, and I don't have a great way to describe it, but maybe like heavy feeling of always choking down tears or a meltdown or losing your bananas when all of a sudden you just don't feel that pressure every moment of the day anymore. You just feel lighter, and feeling lighter somehow has a ripple effect. I mean, the kids got, it's like the kids are less stressed. My poor husband is not afraid to talk to me, Like, we go for family walks because people aren't worried that mommy needs quiet time. So it's like a lot of really good positive things. But I think that the other big one was because I'd always lived my life on this like pathway set in stone, with all of it was like, I swear it was probably a Gantt chart. It was like, okay, here's all the tasks to meet this milestone, to meet this project. Baby number 1 is born. Baby number 2 is born. And I didn't really celebrate stuff. Like I wasn't that mom that would go and take pictures of kids, like when their first day of school. I didn't like get all excited for the first haircut. I'm like, thank God the kid's hair is a mess. Like, why are we being so weird? It's like practical cut hair. What do you guys do? You're so weird. But then I started part of ABA, right, for my daughter again, is you have to celebrate these incremental little steps because it's very quite possible she may never get to that milestone. And I think we're on step 287 on potty training. Like, seriously, I'm not kidding. It might be 289. If I waited until she was there to celebrate, like life was just really dull and not full of moments. And so by learning how to kind of habit chain and break things down into teeny tiny little chunks, but then being able to start celebrating life in teeny tiny chunks. And at first just celebrating my kids because I was very uncomfortable celebrating myself still. Gosh, so many more laughs during the day. Life is a lot more fun when peeing in the potty becomes a celebration versus, waiting until she graduates college or something like that. So I think those two things, just taking the time actually produces time, and celebrating moments make your life more joyful. And all of those things like developed 1 minute at a time.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I just thought I would echo a few things really, because it's important to celebrate the little things that you do as well. Like you mentioned, being like over 280 on potty training, and as you say, you can celebrate the things that you think are worth celebrating, or you can celebrate everything, every little step along the way. And as you say, we very often spend a lot of our time like in the middle. Like, we're very rarely at a point where we are celebrating unless we think that there's something worth celebrating, and there's very often not many of those. But if you can celebrate the little things, and do you actually make a big deal out of those little things, or do you do you sort of like just say, yeah, well done, or do you actually kind of, I wasn't saying like, throw a party for achieving like step one, little teeny tiny thing, but what sort of ways do you actually celebrate those little wins?
Okay, so I'm not actually kidding at all on this. So potty training has been a nemesis of my life. So we started at 2, and now my she'll be 7 in like 2 months, so she's almost 7. And I would say we're 75% there, right? So we got number 1 stuff handled. Number 2 stuff is kind of working itself out. But for literally 2 years, every single time that child went to the bathroom on the potty, every single human that lives in my house jumped up and down and screamed, "Yay, Zoe, you went potty." It was the craziest thing. It was oddly fun and weird and amazing, and kind of like when I started kind of equating our life to a circus, because we had a timer set. Now we recently got an Alexa thing, so it's super cool. But we had this timer set for every 2 hours, and at the 2-hour mark, it was like the whole house was trained. Zoe's like the coolest kid ever because she essentially trains everyone. So the timer goes off, and even my 4-year-old, right, my littlest guy, jumps up wherever he is and is like, potty time, Zoe. Like the whole house jumps up. It's because they're like, oh, we got to get her in there, potty time. So everyone jumps up. It's this big, huge thing. She goes in, she, handles her duties. And as soon as that happens and she cleans herself and flushes, like the flush is like someone just got a new car. I think it's like The Price is Right or something. I mean, everyone is just, Zoe, you went potty. It's a crazy, crazy house. I bet the neighbors think we're all nuts. But it is that big of a deal. I think that we forget how amazing, right? How amazing life is and how amazing development is. My older children were ahead of everything, right? They walked and they talked and they did all these things well before I would have expected and the doctors expected. But they're miraculous things. Like they learned to crawl and walk and stand and jump and ride bikes. And each of those things, when you have a special child, you realize are like 500 little tiny things that they have to actually learn to do right before they can move on. And they're just, able to kind of put them all together sometimes and do them quickly. But, Zoe isn't. She needs to do them in one little step at a time. And I just didn't see that. I didn't see the world. I didn't see the world in all of its pieces. It was kind of like a giant map with destinations that I needed to get to. And I certainly didn't make any efforts to look around and enjoy the journey at all. And our life, our circumstances, our, terrible privilege of being the parents of an amazing, special little girl and 3 other amazing, special little people allowed us to sort of see the trees and the grass and the air. And our lives are better for having got her, and we're able to do the things that we do because of her. And I'm thankful. I'm very thankful.
It must be a really amazing feeling to know that having all the positives that you do actually celebrate allow you to see the positives in other things as well. It seems at least to me something that is quite neglected, I guess, in a lot of people's lives. But your ability to celebrate those little things, I mean, you must be a really positive and really affirming person to then see the good in other things as well. Do you have any other strategies that you can use? So we mentioned the time and the habit chaining and all those kinds of things. What else do you do to almost juggle this life that you lead? I mean, a lot of people are like, right, okay, habits, okay, what else do you actually do? So if someone was making a list now, if people that are listening, they are making a list, I'm sure they could be making a list right now. What other things should they add to the list?
So I would say, like we talked about, the first would be developing your habit chain to start getting positive things in. The second would be celebrating every possible small moment. And the third would be finding a safe place. And what I mean by that and what I've done is I do use my breath if I'm feeling like the peanut butter jelly sandwich decision is going to throw me over the edge. I do close my eyes and I breathe in and I hold it and I breathe out. And I do that a few times because our breath is the only thing that we actually can both connect subconsciously and consciously. And for me, just taking that one moment to be still and to be safe within myself, within my space, and to be intentional with how I'm going to respond if I'm feeling that the thing is an emotional response has been a great help to me. I'm probably that weird lady now that you see in her car after I did not flip off that guy that probably deserved it, that like pulled over and has her eyes closed because she's breathing through that urge to swear horrible things outside of the door. And I don't want my kids to hear those words. But it's definitely been a way for me to just sort of focus and reset and kind of move forward. So that would be my third suggestion. And my last one, or not my last one, but the show's only an hour. I have 500 tips for how not to jump off the roof. But my fourth one would be not to take yourself so seriously. I mean, I get caregiving is difficult, whether it's for a child or for an adult. It's hard to have conversations about how do daughters help fathers, be clean in the restroom, right? How do moms deal with little boys who are behind but are 6 foot tall and they have to help them with hygiene issues? There are all these things that we're afraid to talk about. There's these things that we're ashamed of or that are secrets we feel that we can't share with others. But we're social creatures. Like humans are the most social of all of the mammals, right? We have to be around one another. The whole point is to share your time, treasure, and talents with others in your tribe because we can't all have all of the skills. And so I think it's super important that you realize that and you do say the things you need to say. You do ask for what you need. It's not selfish to take care of yourself, and it's not selfish to have personal needs. And sometimes cleaning poop collages of art off my ceiling is either going to be hilarious or really not. So I choose to laugh about it. I have a poop coffee cup. I use poop emojis when I do some of my posts on my Facebook pages. And I say crazy things because my life is pretty darn crazy. And that's okay because so is everyone else's. I'm just willing to talk about it. And hopefully that allows other people the permission, if they needed it, to also talk or to also ask for help if they need it.
That's actually a great point and a great way to almost allow people to do those things, as you say. I mean, we all have bits of our lives that to other people might seem crazy. Some of it might be seen crazy to yourself, but you do it because it's almost the best way to deal with or cope with or adjust to the reality of the situation. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. Just before we get to the last couple of questions,
sure.
Where can people go if they would like to find out a bit more about you? So this is your chance to share links or websites or social media. This is your chance to share those.
Well, thank you. So I would say if you're looking for solutions to help with the overwhelming caregiving experience, you can go to our website, Mindlight LLC, so MINDLIGHT LLC.com, and you'll find free download for utilizing our app to help manage some of your day. And if you're interested in tips and tricks on how to deal with caregiving as a parent of special needs child, feel free to check out Jackie Schwabe Circus on Facebook or caregivingcircus.com of our blog posts that talk about our journey with our daughter and our family and our other kiddos. I'm always there. Smiling.
Hi, Jackie. Yeah, definitely. All right, we got one last question. I ask all my guests this, so the answers range far and wide. We've had funny ones to serious ones to pretty enlightening ones as well, to say the least. We've had a whole host of different things. And the question is, what would you like the world to know about you that it doesn't already know?
Oh, wow. What does the world not know about me? I'm pretty transparent, Michael. I would say, I think that the whole world assumes because I'm an advocate for my children and myself and my family that I'm an extreme extrovert and that because I will stand in front of an audience of 5,000 people and tell my story. And that's true, I will, but extroverts are also very often have times of introspection or where they're also introverts. I very, very much like sitting in the quiet and writing books and reading with silence and not always being in the center of attention. So I think it would be probably something even my husband sometimes would be surprised at, that you're not always extroverted, you're not always introverted, right? You're not always anything. And in my case, sometimes I would really just like to read a good book in a really quiet room with no little humans, making elephant sounds.
Well, Jackie, that sounds like a very good way to finish. Well, thanks for being a guest on the show. If you're listening, make sure you check Jackie out. Make sure you share this episode, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss our other guests. Jackie, thanks for being a guest on the show. I appreciate you carving out the time, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch.
All right. Thanks so much, Michael. Have a great day.
You too.